Hello. Today's episode number 85 of the Professor Slots podcast discusses mastering casino slots to win your way to success by reviewing my post from the last week. Plus, in this episode, I'll be covering the current state of slot machine casino gambling in the great U.S. state of Missouri. Thank you for joining me for the Professor Slots podcast show. I'm John Friedel, and this is a podcast about slot machine casino gambling. It is where I provide knowledge, insights, and tools for helping you improve your slot machine gambling performance. In case you missed it, on my last episode, I went over self-learning during our self-quarantine. Further, I reviewed Mississippi slot machine casino gambling in 2020. I hope you enjoyed listening to my last episode as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Remember to visit professorslots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Here's the audio recording of my latest live Q&A session from YouTube. Okay, everybody, welcome to our live Q&A. On April 4th, April 4th. And, looks like I've got things set up okay. And certainly do let me know if you see, any problems with video or, audio. Thank you, as usual. So hello, slots enthusiasts. It's great to hang out with you for another Professor Slots podcast episode and live stream. This Q&A session is every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time here on my John Friedel Professor Slots YouTube channel, which you can find if you're on the podcast and want to go to my YouTube channel. It is at professorslots.com/YouTube. That's the convenient link. Otherwise, it's a bunch of numbers. Excellent. This Q&A session, is, weekly. And if you are here live, it's great to hang out with you guys. It's always fun to hang out with you guys and talk about slots related topics. It's where I get some feedback while the conversation is good. While the conversation is going on, real-time feedback. That's great. So those of you who are listening later on the podcast, feel free to show up at YouTube next time. In the last week, I've gotten more useful feedback from several of you who have either listened to the podcast recording of this live show or watched the show itself. This is my 20th live show, and the consensus is I've gotten much better over time, but I could still improve. So let's do that. I have a few ideas about how to do this, which is something of a amalgamation of your feedback plus a few of my own ideas. But first, now's a good time to say hello to our fellow slots enthusiasts on the live chat here on YouTube. If you're on the live chat and you haven't already done so, please say hello to me and everybody else on the chat, and let us know which state you are that you play slots in. So I'm looking at this. Scott has showed up early. Again, I noticed that you were there a few minutes ago. Awesome. And Jan, she says, she says hello to everybody and hoping you are staying healthy. Jan, is from Texas, but she plays in Louisiana. My family friends, Dave and Lois, say hello from Ontario, one of our first international, visitors. And Denise, is also in Texas, but she plays in Oklahoma. Scott says he is from cloudy Ozark, Missouri. Don't say cloudy. Somebody in California is going to say it's not cloudy there. He says he's near Branson, or Springfield, Missouri. Let's see. Yes, Dave and Lois, the family friends, play in Ontario, part of the year, and in Florida the rest of the year. So Jingwok, thank you for the feedback on the video and audio. It's always important to get that right. Today was, an interesting one where where it was zoomed down to a corner of the screen, maybe something left over from last time that I tried. So Paula, hi Paula. And Steve says, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, Steve. He's in Wisconsin. Chuck, thank you again for the feedback. And Joanna. Hi, Joanna. Paula's daughter. Or maybe I should say Paula is Joanna's mother. Scott says, posted this on Redskin. Thank you. If you, there's several things that can be helpful to share this. And I try to mention this at the beginning of the video because it's most helpful, is you can share this, and you can like this. If you like this video now, on YouTube, it'll share. YouTube will take it upon itself to engage its algorithm and share it to more people so that in a few minutes we would have, many more people show up. So and the more people who like it right now, the more that'll spread. And so we'll have a larger crowd to have great questions with. So if you wouldn't mind liking, something else that would just be of benefit later, and I think it's becoming more of a benefit, would be if you were to subscribe. You'll get more notifications about some of the other stuff that I'll be doing, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Doug says, hello and greetings from Missouri. Philly T, it's good to see everybody, as usual. He is on the Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia border. Interesting. Yep. Dean is in Vegas. All those, posts on what's going on in Vegas, which is just amazing. Thanks. Russ, from Troy, Alabama. Excellent. And a coworker on my day job, Terry. Hi, Terry. Hope things are going well today. Thanks for showing up. So, I'll come back and keep an eye on messages, but, one of the things that I'm trying to do, as I was just saying, is there's been some feedback, not just recently, but, I tried to improve things by not being as distracted by chat. The most recent feedback has been to, make it a slightly better experience for people listening to the podcast who's, can't see the live chat. And I just sort of bounce around a little bit too much. I was much worse at it before, but around episode 10 or the 10th live, but I've tried to get better at it, but I'm still doing it too much. So I'm just going to try to look at chat occasionally and not get distracted so I can stay on topic, and make it a better experience for people on the podcast. I do try to listen to feedback. So that's one of the ideas that was shared with me, and also, how to do that is something I'm have a few ideas on, and we'll see how it goes. Every live session is an improvement. Should see me a year from now. So I'm glad I was able to say hello to everybody. And those of you who are just showing up, hi, Jill. I understand, David and Lois. I was just explaining that to somebody about how to get a free account on YouTube if you've never been to YouTube before. So that allows you to chat. And hopefully people will be able to figure that out if they care to chat. Otherwise, they can only listen. So if my dad is online, hi, Dad, and to chat, you need to get a free account. But I won't worry about that. So let's move forward here. Those of you who just showed up, please say hello and let us know which state you're in. And so my father is in Michigan at the moment, and half part of the year is in Florida. So he's representing Michigan as far as I can tell. Okay. Today's topic is something this is that one of the new things I'm going to try. I've been doing it a little bit, but I think it was a positive enough response that I would continue to do it and more aggressively do it, which is in the last week, because of, what's going on with all the casinos being closed. I've been trying to alleviate boredom by posting daily on my website, my public Facebook profile, my private Professor Slots Enthusiasts Facebook group, and each of my state-by-state private Facebook communities, of which there are 56, because that includes states, but also territories. And I think I have one territory that doesn't, was it Guam, that doesn't have anybody, but it's just mostly armed forces individuals there. So in the last week, I posted 6 different things. And as I go through each, I don't want to take away from the videos that I put out and the articles that I've posted in this last week, but they're, it's smoothly recording of just the topics, but there's also a few subtleties that sort of need a longer explanation, but it wouldn't be necessarily the best thing to put into the video. But they're worth mentioning, and certainly I can take your questions. So that's what I'm going to try to do this time, and if it works out well, next time. And after that, at the live Q&A, to sort of see if you have any questions about the articles and videos that I'm posting. Speaking of the videos, I hope it wasn't too confusing for some people. For 20 weeks, 21 weeks, since just about the middle of November of 2019, I've been going live on Saturdays, and that's all I've basically done. There's been a couple of videos I put up, but I haven't been regular about it. So you might notice at the top of my YouTube, the banner there, it now has a green box that shows I will be posting on Tuesdays, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And then there would be a live Q&A on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And that's the schedule. Now, I wasn't able to do this last Thursday, but I did put out one on Sunday and Tuesday. So I'm going to see if I can keep up with that schedule, but that's the plan. And I want to go over those videos. So if you are only used to seeing a notification from YouTube that I'm going to be live on Saturday, now you're getting notifications on some of the other much shorter videos, much less than an hour videos. I don't mean to explain YouTube if you already understand it, but there's plenty of people who don't understand YouTube. So if you've subscribed, you should get a notification when I put up a video, and you can expect to have videos on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. That's the schedule that I've given myself, and I'll try to be consistent about that. And there's not much more to say about that. These are various topics that I've covered, and I'm trying to determine which ones are more popular than others, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I have some how-to stuff, which seems to be wildly popular, not surprisingly, and then there's some history stuff, which maybe you're a history buff and you like it as much as I do. I find some of the stuff fascinating because the history tells us the future, but it's not necessarily as popular as how-to topics. So I'm going to go over a couple of those, and I'll go over a couple of articles. So that's the plan, and we shall see what the feedback shows later. So yes, over the last week, I've posted short recorded videos, and as well as the live stream, using the proper terminology, later on, posted that on my podcast later. So for those of you who are on my podcast, you can go to professorslots.com/YouTube. That's a convenient link instead of a whole bunch of numbers. And then you can, find me on YouTube, the second largest search engine in the world. So I'm going to post the first video, a link to the first video in the live chat. There you go. And for those of you who are listening from the podcast or later, you'll find that link shortly in the description on the YouTube video, but also it's going to be in the show notes on my website for the podcast that I'll be putting out tomorrow night. And not to distract myself from chat, I'll come back to that. In the show notes, you'll find the show notes for the podcast at professorslots.com/episode 85. Just type that in, but it won't be available until tomorrow when I post it. So that's where you'll find the links that I'm sharing with everybody live now. A little confusing. There's got to be a shorter way to say all that. So the first topic is my YouTube video called "Why Do Slot Machines Use Fruit Real Symbols?" I'm trying to introduce a few concepts, including later on definitions that'll help us all sort of better communicate. For those of us who don't know a lot about this stuff, I know some of you do. Some of you have read all my stuff. But there are plenty of people out there who, to have a conversation, we need to talk about some things first. So these videos will get more sophisticated, because I'll assume that you've seen the prior videos, and then we can have a deeper conversation. So right now it's history and definitions and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but won't be long before we're going to get deep into it. So, this video on fruit real symbols falls under the category of slot machine history. I don't have a lot of history of slots videos to make, but knowing the history of slot machines does help us to understand trends and patterns, so we better understand what's coming next. So one of the history of slot machines, it goes back about 140 years, maybe roughly 140 years. It's hard to say exactly when the first slot machine was invented. You can go with 1887, because it was a machine that you could gamble on and it had a slot. Before that, there were machines that couldn't handle coins. First thing they could do was take a coin, and then years later pay out in a coin. And at what point do you decide that it become a slot machine? So a lot of people say it has to take a coin and reward you with a coin if you won. That's a lot of the definitions around, is it truly a slot machine? Before these slot machines, there were poker machines, also known right from the beginning as one-armed bandits. And they didn't dispense coins, but it would be in a bar, a brothel, and other places people would be. And you would win a drink or a cigar if you won. Now, this was based on the game of poker. Royal Flush was the top prize, but it wasn't based on the 52 card deck. It was based on the 50 card deck. If you want to understand a little bit more about that, you'll have to check the article. I don't want to give away all the details. I just want to talk in general about what it covers. So, in 1887, the slot machine that had a slot to accept a coin and a tray to reward the player if they won with coins, was invented in 1887 by Charles Fay, of San Francisco. He's known as the father of slot machines, not just because he invented the slot machine, but because he promoted it, which is part of what's really important, with being a father of something, not just the invention, but also the promotion of it. They didn't have, it didn't have, fruit real symbols until 1910. And those were added, to circumvent the banning of slot machines because people turned against it. Then, in 1920, Prohibition, America's Prohibition, began. This forced these gum dispensing slot machines with their fruit real symbols, where the fruit that you won with was the flavor of the gum you received as a prize. Prohibition opened all these speakeasies where you get a drink, but it was the slot machines went back to dispensing money, and they went into the speakeasies, and that's known as the golden age of slots. So that's a different topic, but that's basically the coverage of that article. And if you have questions, now's a good time. Next week, you might want to watch some of the videos and make sure if you have questions. So I'm going to check, to see what the questions might have been. Hello, Robert. Robert is from Dallas, Texas. The YouTube and Dave and Lois ask about notifications that they've been getting them. YouTube's great about that. And that's why I ask people to like the video here, because there are people who may have seen one of my videos before and they get a notification. So it's a pretty aggressive system. I mean, they do try to promote things. You don't become the second biggest search engine in the world without making an effort. Let's see. Sal says, hi, John, Boston. Okay. Welcome. Welcome from Boston. Any truth to pressure sensors on spin buttons? No. What would they do on pressure sensors? Push it only a little. I mean, you can, the thing, yeah, it's a little off topic, but I'll briefly mention, if you have a pressure sensor, when you push a button, it's usually something called a capacitor button. It's not unlike your phone a little bit. When you have a switch, you either press the button or you don't. Right? And how well my cat's bugging. If my cat comes up here, I'll introduce you to one of my cats. Okay. All right. Paula also, sorry, I'll let Paula answer that question. She got a question. Pressure sensors, they're not reading you can have a pressure sensor which reads the amount of pressure you're pressing on it, but, I don't see any use for that. I mean, if you just look at video games, how much do you press a button? It either flips the switch or it doesn't. And what other purpose would a button be? It would be awesome to have, like a gaming control, like on a video game where you might, have a virtual gun, ray gun, and it's higher energy when you press harder. But I don't see anything like that coming into slot machines. People, let's say you had a pressure sensor that, you press the button a lot and you bet more. Oh, that's going to lead to all kinds of trouble. Yeah. So I don't see the point of having a pressure sensor. Also, pressure sensors, can be overwhelmed if you press it too hard. And anybody who's played a slot machine, I think you've sat next to somebody who just pounds the button. Pressure sensors break, and they got to be slot machine buttons have to be robust. I can't see them being able to survive somebody pounding on it, like we've all seen. So I don't see any advantage to pressure sensors. Let's see. Richard says, will overdue time-clocked jackpots hit like wildfire at first reopening? So I try to be very fact-based, and I doubt it. Some of the things that I've been hearing is that people, when they closed the casino, a casino employee was going around writing down all the numbers on the progressive jackpots, because when they powered everything down, they wanted to make sure that it came back to that amount. So it should be as though, suspended animation. The machines don't know the time change. They were working, and then somebody turned them off, and then they turned it back on. It should be right back where it was. On the other hand, this has never happened before. So it would be interesting to see, what actually happens. But I don't see how it would possibly be useful unless we have another global pandemic next year. When will everything be shut down again? I mean, stuff happens, right? But it's been since 1917, since the last one. So if we did find out that they came back, then, what I want to do is to do what we did. What I want to do here is to do what we did when the casinos closed. Okay. We might even add another session, a midweek or something, if it happens really fast. That would have been maybe a good idea before, because they didn't all close at once. So I would expect that they would not all open at once, and that it would be spread out even more than the shutdown. Shutdown was like 2.5 weeks. I can expect it being a month or more, when things come back. So, come here, report on the, slots communities, report here, as things come back online in probably not April, maybe May. and we will track the first ones that open, and we'll use that information on the other ones that open as they open. All right. Paula, you've seen the cat. Paula says, I want to see the cat. Well, they're a little bit fussy about sitting on my lap. I should be happy they don't want to sit on my lap all the time. Yeah, just giving me one of my cats is just giving me that look. You know the look. Coolest place on the map is Thermos Mill Spring, and that's saying something that Mill Spring is on the map. All right. Let's see. Don't know what that was about. Sorry about that, Jan. She says she can't find the checklist on my website for one of the articles. I will make sure that's set up. Okay. Yeah, it's been an evolution on the website, and so I will make sure that's up and running. It might be an hour from now. I have a casino checklist for a physical assessment of a casino, and I have to check to see if the link is broken. So Scott says, after reading my book, that one, Learning to Win, the idea is not to show up the first day they reopen, but if it is the first of the month, wait till middle of the month and cannot stand it. Go after midnight. I think they won't all open at once, so we'll have some ideas of how the openings go. But you're thinking about it correctly. Okay, there is going to be an advantage, but what will be the advantage? And so we'll see how this goes. Yeah, I figured that out. To make everybody included in the conversation, there are chats going on between individuals in the live chat, which is absolutely wonderful. So have your conversations. I'm going to go back to the topic, okay? So we talked about fruit wheel symbols. I have another one for you, which is a how-to video. It categorizes a how-to, and I'm putting up the different categories so that's easy to find in when you go to my YouTube channel. I like the YouTube environment. It's a little easier to see. If I add a video, and I do add these videos to my articles, it can be very buried, and it's a lot more findable, searchable in YouTube. But I'll talk about that. So the second video I uploaded, that would have been Tuesday last week, was how do slot machines pay out taxable jackpots? Now, there's a couple of things that this could have been about, and I put that link in the live chat. But it's also going to be, again, available later in professorslots.com/episode 85 when I create that page for the podcast. So you can find it there later. And in the description of this video. So this topic, this video falls under the how-to category, which, even though it's only been out since Tuesday, has been letting myself get distraction. I'm trying not to. So this video, how do slot machines pay out taxable jackpots, is a how-to video in the category of how-to, and it's much more popular. I'm already seeing it since Tuesday than my slots history stuff, but I think slots history is also important. So I'm using the feedback from likes and comments to make more of one type of video than the other. So I'm going to be putting out some things that are going to be dogs, not popular, but that's something, the feedback that I look at. So I will adjust as I go, but for now I have to put up everything and see how it goes. So this video on paying out, how do slot machines pay out taxable jackpots, I realized that people, there's plenty of slots players who've never won a taxable jackpot. I've sat next to them. People have sat next to me and couldn't understand. I mean, there was Well, there was this poker player. They had the World Series of Poker at, when it was Horseshoe Cincinnati. Now it's Jack's, but it's going to become a Hard Rock. Sorry. Hasn't quite done that, fully, but, they had the World Series of Poker, and, young gentleman, I was told famous, but I don't really follow those individuals, was there for the long haul and lost, fairly early on, despite what he wanted to do. And he sat down, not right next to me in the high limit area, but 2 machines over. And when so I'm sitting there playing my Wheel of Fortune that I like and, winning money and whatnot. And he's playing, and I asked him, how did it go? And he says, he's $4,000 down from the tournament. And I said, oh, okay. And he says, I wanted to, I haven't really played slots too much. I wanted to try it, got some time, after busting out of the tournament. And he sat down next, 1 over from me, 2 over from me. And he won a taxable jackpot. What was it? $4,800. I remember, 48, 4,000 something, almost 5. And he didn't know, I mean, he's a smart guy, knows his stuff, but, more poker. And he was kind of like pushing the button several times because the machine broke. Or did it? No, it was a taxable jackpot. It locked up. So that, and automatically calls a slot attendant who has not shown up yet. And it kind of looks over at me like, what the heck? This is a terrible experience. I'm like, well, if you look over down there, the area, and you'll see that you won that many credits. And if you multiply that number of credits, I think it was like, 980 or something. And you multiply that by 5, and that's the cash you just won. So it looks like you just made your money back from what you spent to get into the tournament. And he's like, surprised look on his face for those of you on the podcast. And they came over and took care of it, and he had a good trip. He didn't have a loss for that trip. I don't know what happened to him later. He left, but, the high limit room, but, he made back with a push of a button. He wasn't there more than like 6 minutes, and he won back everything he had spent. And I just looked at him and I'm like, welcome to the world of playing slots. Any case, so that's one of the things that I saw. Another person, I think they were kind of in a hurry. They just came in, and, I don't want to say anything about maybe having a gambling addiction or something, but they wanted to spend a lot of money fast, and they didn't get their wish because they're sitting there and they pressed the button and it locked up. Congratulations. Right. It locked up, and they didn't know what was going on. In fact, well, then they did, right? It locked up, and they're like, what the heck? And they looked and they saw that they had won a jackpot. So they stood up, they started walking away. They, as they did all that, they pressed the cash out button. So that told me they'd never won a taxable jackpot before. And I proceeded to put my foot in my mouth, which was, trying to be helpful. I looked over at her and I said, oh, it's a taxable it's a jackpot. The machine's locked up. A slot attendant will come over and you'll have to pay taxes before you can get the money. It won't be a voucher. And they turned and looked at me with them very upset and said, taxes? And I'm like, oh, yeah, the attendant's going to be here. I'm out. I'm not part of this conversation anymore. I don't want to have to explain the whole idea of paying taxes. Wasn't even going to mention if she had won $200 on a slot machine someplace, then that's income and has to be, it was required by the IRS too. We talked about a prior Q&A. IRS wants you to pay taxes on that, but they don't actually set it up so that it happens when you win the jackpot. And people they do what they do. So, I don't want to go over the video in detail now, because I want you to watch it later, but, I have a few comments to make, about what that video, about, how do slot machines pay out taxable jackpots is about. So, what it isn't about is when, slot machines payout. That's really talking about how do you win on a slot machine. What I'm talking about is what is the mechanics of winning the slot machine. The machine locks up. Don't be surprised. It's good news, unless, there's something else going on with it. So I have other videos coming up that will be about my winning slot strategies, and those will be available later. But for now, this is just about when jackpots occur. So the mechanics of the payout process, the mechanics of the hand pay process, it's what it's like to win a jackpot, taxable jackpot. So the first thing I go over in that article, just to be clear about what I offer in it, for those of you who may not know my material quite so much, I talk about the random number generator, because the random number generator isn't just used once when you play a slot machine. It's twice. Okay. Potentially twice. The random number generator is engaged when you press the bet button. Okay. And if you don't win anything, whatsoever, then it's only used that once. But if you win anything, it's used a second time to determine how much you won. All right. First time it's used, whether or not you win. Second time it's used, if you win, how much you won, with different odds. So sometimes you are sit at a slot machine. Have you seen this, right? You've sat at a slot machine, and I've certainly seen it. You win a lot, small amounts. If only they were taxable jackpots, sitting on a high limit machine. And I'm like, I'm using my bankroll and I'm not winning enough to keep up with what I'm spending. And that gets to be frustrating. And one of the things I came up with was, you can look this up and we'll talk about it on other topics when I get there, is my goodness ratio, which will help you avoid those slot machines that pay out very little and perhaps less than you're spending. And there's little to be done about that, but to recognize how that might happen before you start betting. So there, from talking about, pressing the button, I go into, let's say you won something with the random number generator, came back and said you won something, and then random number generator came back right after that and found out how much you won, and that amount was taxable. Taxable being $1,200 or more. It's not $1,199.99. It is $1,200 or more. And if it goes over $10,000 on that single press of the button and it's a jackpot, one of the little details is for the casino that I was at, if it was less than $10,000, then the slot attendant would take care of it, handle it, but then they would always ask for a verifier to come over and just check the paperwork to confirm that it's correct. And that would be another slot attendant, perhaps servicing another area of the casino, an adjacent area of the casino. So it's a two-person job, but one person takes care of most of it and the other one's called over to check things towards the end. If you're over $10,000, and who knows these things? People who've won jackpots over $10,000 and maybe more than once, like I have. And the second person to verify it can't be a slot attendant at the casinos that I was going to, Caesars Entertainment casinos. You had to have a floor manager, gentleman in a suit, woman in a suit, and they do a deeper check. I've never won anything more than $27,000 in a single slot machine jackpot, which is, barely mid-level jackpots. I haven't won, $250,000 jackpot or anything like that, much less anything more. So I don't know the verification process, but it's probably pretty specific. Some people have here, like Larry from UK has talked in the past about how it might take 6 hours, particularly if it's progressive and it's at multiple casinos owned by different casino operators. So that is all part of these more unique high-level jackpots. If anybody has won a high-level jackpot, that would be, well, actually don't say you have. Probably best not to share that sort of information, I would say. I'll have a question for you in a moment. So, yeah, that's, well, actually right now, in the chat, I want to be very specific here. Would you mention whether or not you've won a taxable jackpot? I'd be interested in knowing if you've won one. Please don't tell me how much they are. Please don't tell me how many they are. I don't want you to divulge financial information. But if you've not won, or if you have won a taxable jackpot where you got a W-2G, please mention it. We're trying to get an idea, if you can't, if you have, and how much I need to talk about these sorts of things. So just checking with the chat, I have a message from Jan. Am I getting married? Are you getting married in October? See, now I don't know if people are talking to each other, if they're talking to somebody else. If you happen to mean me, Jan, no, I'm not getting married in October. My daughter is, next month. Let's see, Paula. All right. Just trying to see which one of these chat messages are for me. Bunch of chats coming in, and let's see. Sal has a question. I'm not sure I'll read it. One line machine can play one coin, 2 or 3 coins, except everybody says play max, but is each coin denomination an independent game, and percentage payout for each can amount based on how much they have won. I've talked about this in the past, and I'll briefly say it's a little off topic, but every bet is identical, whether it's one line or multiple lines, or one credit or multiple credits. Every bet is identical, except when, if you look in the pay table, it says something that isn't. All right. You can sometimes, see in the pay table that it says only get the bonus round possible if you make maximum bet, in which case that one can potentially have different odds. That's the machines that you would want to pay maximum bet on, so you have the best odds. But if it doesn't say maximum bet required to get the bonus round, and it's very machine specific, then they're all identical. Now, there is one machine out there. Which one is it? Where every credit is actually, it's a video slot machine. Every credit is a different game, right? The whole screen changes and it's a different game. So those have different odds, but I think you'd notice that sort of thing. So moving on, Robert says yes. And Jan says she's won 2 different states, Louisiana and another one in Michigan. Scott says, lots. Yeah, there are people who have won lots. And Robert says, yes, good. Dean, yep. Steve says he has. Steve has sent me more than a few pictures. I'm sorry, I don't mean to divulge that, but yes, Steve won. Steve won one, at least. Chuck, yep, he has. Doug, yes. Denise, yes. Wise version, we are a couple, 1-3 taxable jackpots, consulted a client, one whom won 12 taxable jackpots in one weekend. Yeah, that sort of thing can happen. And not everybody is interested in winning taxable jackpots because, as I try to explain, what's your goal? A lot of people have the goal that most slots players have is entertainment. Is the largest segment of the audience, our largest group of people. Other people really enjoy the comps. They're into travel and the food, great food at casinos, and some of them, and so they can really be into the comps more than anything else. But then there are the smallest group that I've found so far in the main categories. Like there's some people who just want to know how everything works, like me, and I wouldn't. There's me, and there's maybe a few others, but the third category is they want to win money, and winning money is hard, right? You got to keep records. You got to look at the patterns. You've got to consider, the financial reports. You've got to do that work. And for some of us, that's fun. And so it takes all kinds. You don't have to win a taxable jackpot. I just wondered if people had. Because if everybody's like, yeah, I'm so bored with it at this point, then why would I even bother talking about? But if other people are like, no, I always wondered what would happen if I did, I wouldn't mind knowing what happens to know I have. Because the look of shock and surprise and, on the people who have sat next to me and gone, what just happened? And I'm like, oh, well, first off, congratulations. And so, so thank you for the feedback. Steve says jackpots, all kinds. So, the next few, of the articles, and I might not be able to get through all 6. Sorry. I can't wave my hands around too much. Otherwise I thump the microphone. I'll try to remove that later, before the podcast, they hear that. But, 2 videos, 4 articles. And so the next one, is an article, the first of the articles. And why do slot machines say bar on their real symbols? Please don't share. If you have the answer, if you read my article, if you know something about the history of slot machines, that would be awesome if you would not share. It's a major point. So you're looking, Scott has an excellent idea. Is there, an online poll, for this sort of thing? Yes, but as I was talking to somebody, there isn't one right now, but it is a fine idea. And I'm actually making a list of questions because having a 1-question poll isn't really efficient. I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask maybe 5 questions, 10 questions. Would you be interested in an online course? How much do you take to a casino on an individual trip? It tells me a lot of what the audience would want. So, I haven't folded that in yet. It's actually going to have to be pretty sophisticated. And, the feline has returned. I'll be doing, polls, but it's not quite necessary. I have to sort of get the questions together. Chatting now is fine. There's several things I need to know about my audience, but it's okay just to build the audience first and then get enough people to have a statistically good response, because you only get like an 8% response. And if I only have 8 people, that means 1 person responded and it's not statistically relevant necessarily. Don't mean to get all technical there. Right. So I'll wait, but it won't be long because we're growing. Let's see. So this slots history topic about, why do slot machines say bar on their reels? It's a bar, you see them now. They're traditional, but they're there from the beginning. All right. Right about the time the fruit reels showed up, because people were trying to not be prosecuted for having a slot machine because it was becoming less and less legal. They also came up with the bar symbols, a bar symbol. And traditionally, now we have 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars, 4 bars. But the bar is original, not unlike the cherry. Now, I don't see too many watermelons or grapes. Plums. Sorry, plums. Now, we have our genetically enhanced plump plums, round, but they're more oblong, oblate spheroid, basically football shaped, that the plums used to be kind of old-fashioned plums before they got genetically enhanced to be plumper. That was on the original fruit-flavored slot machines. I would say cherry is probably more common. Of all the fruit symbols that used to be common, we have bars and cherry. So I might try to do this. She doesn't like to be manhandled. I have friendlier cats. She just loves me but she doesn't like to be touched. Sorry, maybe next time. So, that was our cat experience. I like dogs too, honest. Right. So traditional bar symbols, and I won't tell you, where that would be, but I do plan on making a video about that article. And I've currently scheduled it, to be coming out on the evening, maybe 5:00, on Sunday, a week from tomorrow, April 12th, 2020. for those of you who are in the far future. So if you have questions, please let me know about bar symbols. Julie says at Red Mile HHR Gaming, machines involves historic horse racing results. Yep. I went down to Red Mile. Didn't write the article on it. Too many things going on, but I wanted to at least learn about them. And the newer games can result in $5,000. Yes. See, that is correct. But slot machines are not allowed at Red Mile in Kentucky. They're not slot machines. Technically, they're historic horse racing machines. They're based on parimutuel betting rules, and parimutuel betting rules don't have the same federal tax law assigned to it. So yes, on HHR machines, which I learned could very well expand to all states, because it's one of those things. If you have parimutuel horse racing, even if you don't have any more tracks, like Connecticut doesn't have tracks, but it has parimutuel horse racing laws, you could have a facility that wouldn't be a casino. There would be an HHR parlor. Can't be called slot machines, because it isn't. It's HHR gaming, and they're looking at expanding those historic horse racing game machines to every state that has parimutuel wagering. So we could see that burst out of Kentucky real fast. Let's see, you bet low. Julie also says that personally she bets slow and have won several cash out jackpots. No hand pay. Yeah, it's just HHR machines. Thank you for providing the book. Now, Robert says, John, I have to leave. Yep. If you have to leave, that's fine. We got about 10 more minutes left. But I wanted to cover, at least one more topic, because it is important, having to do with casino safety. So I think I closed out everything I wanted. I told you the next one of the videos that coming up a week from tomorrow would be, based on one of the articles I have. So here's, the link to the next one that I wanted to talk about that I published this week, posted this week. Let's do that. And right. So this one is called Casino Safety. And I felt like it was a little too serious. So I added another title to it, Casino Safety, or 5 Fun Ways to Protect Yourself. Because you shouldn't be scared about not being safe in casinos. There are topics that I need to cover that aren't about winning. They're kind of about not losing, right? I wouldn't want anything bad to happen to you at a casino, and having situational awareness and some other things just to point out some of these topics. It's just part of what I need to discuss. I want you to be safe, even though it's a very safe environment. But one of the things that was pointed out to me is consider when you go to a casino, all right? For one thing, you have cash, right? We have cash. Slots players have cash. While you can do things like use an ATM or for withdrawal or deposit, so you don't have to walk through the casino parking lot or parking structure with cash, you still could be expected to have cash. So inside the casino, you've got a lot of surveillance and people walking around. If you were to yell, lots of casino employees would come running, even if you're in a dark corner. Maybe not quite so much in the parking structure. So maybe use the valet. These are topics that I put into this post. What's the value of a valet? And what's the value of the high tiers having, being allowed to park near the door of the casino and the structure, and there's designated areas, coming and going with $10,000 or more in their pockets, so just be aware of that you have help very nearby. If you're playing a table game, you're facing a dealer, maybe a boxman, maybe other casino employees who are right there with you. Nobody can walk up and solicit you. I'll just leave it at that. Use your imagination. Nobody can walk up and say, hey, and try to scam you in all the different ways that you can be scammed, because the dealer's right there, and they'd just be like, call security, and they can't be as tricked very easily, because, they're far more experienced. They know the people, and they know that this person has done that before. And it's just, when you are playing a table game, you're safer because multiple casino employees usually are right there facing you. But when you play a slot machine, and pretty sure all of you have played slot machines, you're facing the machine. Might not even be able to see behind you. I've been in the back room of a high limit area, and people have walked up behind me, and I talk a little bit about situational awareness and what to watch for and what to do if things get a little nervous. Trust your gut is part of the article. Let me know if you have questions. I see some additional chat I wanted to double check on. Robert said he had to go. Thank you for all the information, John, you provide. We'll finish watching later. Okay. Have a good day. Hopes that everybody will stay safe and healthy, and look forward to getting back to what we love. Can't agree more. I mean, absolutely. I try to not worry people. I've been having an overabundance. Part of the reason why I didn't post on Thursday was overabundance of, keeping my job and stuff. See what's happening this week, and just, seeing what the next situation. It's been stressful. Of course, it's stressful for all of us. Doug says, John, when do you think casinos will be back in business? Here in Missouri, we had a shelter-in-place order until April 24th. Wise Virgin, Richard, made a suggestion, and thank you for those messages, Richard. Hopefully not everybody will send me quite so many messages, but hard to keep up. But if your casino has a hotel, check to see if you can make a reservation. What a great tip, right? I know somebody else, Robin from Anytime Gambling, it's Anytime Gambling, is someone who talks a lot about craps and blackjack. Great guy, Robin. He had a post earlier today about they decided to move their April reopening in Massachusetts to beginning of May. I think he might have said May 3rd or May 4th. So a great thing to do is to check to see if your casino has a hotel, when they will start accepting reservations. And that's a way to sort of keep track of what the internal thinking is. They could still put it off, but what's the current number? And that's my suggestion to you. Let's see, here in Missouri, they had a shelter order in place until April 24th. Yeah, we don't know. Every state's very different. But I think the easy thing to do is just to check the hotel and see when you can make a reservation. You don't have to make a reservation, but when you check to see, you'll be like, well, not until then, at least. Scott, just FYI, illegal to conceal and carry on Indian reservations. Just FYI. Usually there's a sign in the door. It does depend on state law. But I have an article on tribal casinos, actually several, and those will be coming out in its own category. Don't mess around with tribal casinos. Don't mess around with tribal casinos. I'm going to say it a third time. Don't mess around with tribal casinos. Okay. They have their own police force. They have their own, judge. They have their own legal system. All right. And, the casino is owned by the tribe. So it's just not anything to mess around with. There's, I think, do I have the book? I have the book on my shelf over there. Robert Narcissian, The Law for Gamblers, I think that is the title of the book. Chapter 8, Tribal Casinos. OMG WTF. That's the name of the chapter. That's very appropriate. So, one of the things I'll talk about, actually, we have only 2 minutes left. The last thing I wanted to go over common definitions, which I wasn't able to get to, but the last one I wanted to go over, the fourth article, was state gaming regulations and what you need to know. So I will share these two links here, so at least you have them for the last two articles that we run out of time for, which is fine. And so definitions, some obsolete ones having to do with coins. Yeah, again, it's sort of a history thing and some of that. But it's good to know what a candle is and some other stuff. So then I have also the state gaming regulations and what you need to know. And one of the topics in one of the subsections in that one is about gaming regulations. And in the United States, it's primarily states. Now, I am of the opinion that if Utah says there is no gambling in our state, that it's still a state gaming commission or state gaming jurisdiction, Utah, because they do have gaming regulations. It's a amendment in their constitution, a bit of their constitution, which says none, and that's about it. So that's enough for me to call it a gaming regulation, a gaming jurisdiction. So 56 of them in the United States, one for each state and territory and federal district, even though that doesn't say much. Doug, let's see, Denise had a guy that robbed a bank in Fort Worth and went to WinStar. He was spotted on a blackjack table, and they would not let feds in to arrest. Had to call tribal police to do it. I think the guy would have preferred federal. Yeah, not to be messed around with. Interestingly enough, and just a few more seconds, Ohio Gaming Commission actually posts all the arrests made at casinos. We don't have any tribal casinos in Ohio, but any of the arrests made and what the offense was is all documented, and you can go read it. It's pretty interesting. Cleveland doesn't look like a pleasant place to be gambling. Yes, please, everyone. Thank you, Steve. Everybody take care. Have fun. Be safe. Make good choices. Hope this, the podcast audience, enjoys a little more consistency and a little bit less distractions. We shall see. Let me know if you feel otherwise. So take care, and I will talk to everybody next week. And there'll be more videos coming up. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. This is the second segment of the show on slot machine casino gambling. Here, I provide a brief overview of the current state of gambling in a U.S. state, territory, or the federal district, emphasizing, by far, anything of interest to slot machine casino gamblers. Up next is Missouri slot machine casino gambling in 2020. Here goes. Missouri slot machine casino gambling consists of 13 riverboat casinos across the state. A theoretical payout minimum limit exists per state gaming regulations. Further, return statistics are publicly available. The minimum legal gambling age in Missouri depends upon the gambling activity. For land-based casinos and poker rooms, it's 21. For bingo, the lottery, and parimutuel wagering, it's 18. Missouri is the 5th U.S. state to approve riverboat casinos. Gaming regulations for these casinos have evolved over time, including eliminating cruising, closing boarding for 2-hour-long gaming sessions, and removal of the original $500 loss limit on each gaming session. The state of Missouri withholds 4% of winnings on $1,200 or more jackpots or cash prizes. Filing a tax return with Missouri can potentially return some of this withheld state income tax. Next up is a usually short statement about slot machine private ownership, which I have included in case you live in this U.S. state and are considering owning a slot machine. Here it is. In Missouri, private ownership of a slot machine is legal if it is at least 30 years old. The Missouri Gaming Commission is responsible for establishing state gaming regulations for riverboat casinos, fantasy sports, bingo, and charitable games. This state gaming control board also hosts the interesting Missouri Gaming Commission News and Information blog with gaming news and information, as well as photos. In this section, I'll discuss Missouri gambling establishments. There are 13 riverboat casinos in Missouri. The largest casino in Missouri is Ameristar Casino Hotel, Kansas City, with 2,578 gaming machines. The second largest casino is Ameristar Casino Resort Spa, St. Charles, with 2,567 gaming machines. Missouri has 13 riverboat casinos. As usual, when there are too many casinos to mention here, a complete list along with links to the websites, assuming they've set one up, is available on my website blog article for this state at professorslots.com/mo. Missouri is home to 2 American Indian tribes. Without federal recognition, neither tribe can offer a tribal casino. Further, no tribal gaming compacts exist with the state. As an alternative to enjoying Missouri slot machine casino gambling, consider exploring casino options in a nearby state. Bordering Missouri is, to the north, Iowa, to the east, Illinois, to the southeast, Kentucky, to the south, Arkansas and Tennessee, to the northwest, Nebraska, and to the west, Kansas and Oklahoma. To visit any of my articles on these U.S. states, simply visit professorslots.com followed by its 2-letter postal designation. For example, my Iowa slots article is available at professorslots.com/IA. Are you interested in sharing and learning with other slots enthusiasts in Missouri? If so, join our Missouri Slots community on Facebook at professorslots.com/FBMO. All you'll need is a Facebook profile to join this private Facebook group freely. There, you'll be able to privately share your slots experiences as well as chat with players about slots gambling in or near Missouri. Again, use this convenient link I've created to go directly to our group on Facebook, professorslots.com/FBMO. Join us. Missouri state law has established an 80% lower limit for theoretical payout returns on all gambling devices. Actual return statistics are combined results from all electronic games, including video poker, video keno, and slot machines. Monthly reports are under the Gaming Control Board's I Want To section called View Slot Payout Percentages by Location. The most recent monthly report at the time of this recording is from January 2020. This extensive monthly return reports statistics by casino and slot machine denomination. In January 2020, the overall slots return percentage for all 13 Missouri riverboat casinos was 90.4%. Further, for January 2020, the individual monthly return for each riverboat casino is listed at my website blog article for the state at professorslots.com/mo under the Payout Returns in Missouri section. For January 2020, the highest returns went to Ameristar Casino Resort Spa St. Charles at 91.0%, closely followed by River City at 90.8%. The lowest returns for the month went to the Isle of Capri Casino Hotel, Kansas City at 88.6%, closely followed by the Mark Twain Casino at 88.7%. By slot machine denominations, the highest returns went to Ameristar Kansas City with 107.9% payout on their $100 machines, followed by 100.9% for $25 machines at Lemire Place. Both high returns were no doubt due to a single large jackpot win in January. The lowest returns by slot machine denomination went to Hollywood with 76.4% for their $100 machines, followed by 81.7% at River City. And yes, 76.4% is less than the state's minimum theoretical payout of 80%. It would be best to avoid these slot machine denominations at these riverboat casinos as well as any other low-return slot machine denominations in Missouri. Be sure to check the most recent return statistics prior to visiting casinos in Missouri. In summary, Missouri slot machine casino gambling consists of 13 riverboat casinos, having a total of 16,293 slot machines. Missouri's tribes are unable to offer tribal casinos. State gaming regulations established an 80% minimum theoretical payout for all gaming devices, including slot machines, video poker, and video keno. Detailed return statistics are publicly available by month, casino, and slot machine denomination. Over the last year, the 2 Ameristar casinos in Missouri have each increased their number of slots by either over 300 or nearly 600 machines. Otherwise, the Isle of Capri Casino Hotel Cape Girardeau has become Century Casino Cape Girardeau. Further, Century Casino also purchased Lady Luck Caruthersville and subsequently renamed it Century Casino Caruthersville. Remember to visit professorslots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Part 1 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast is a live Q&A session on YouTube. Remember, my weekly Q&A session on YouTube is on Saturdays from 2 p.m. until 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Bring whatever slots questions you have, and I'll do my best to answer them. An easy-to-remember link to my YouTube channel is professorslots.com/live. Feel free to stop by anytime during my hour-long Q&A. To suggest a topic or ask a question which might end up as a blog article or on a podcast episode, email it to john@professorslots.com, where John is spelled Jon. Part 2 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast is another brief overview of the current state of gambling in a U.S. state, territory, or the federal district. Next time, I'll be talking to you about the great U.S. state of Montana. That's the end of another great episode of the Professor Slots podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Show notes for this episode are on my website at professorslots.com/episode 85. I plan to have the next episode come out very soon for you, where I'll have more amazing content for the show. Until the next episode, have fun, be safe, and make good choices. Bye.